Happy Sunday and welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead. And I am really excited about what we are whipping up in the kitchen today. Now, today is Saturday and this video will post tomorrow. And I had hoped to start this last night, but I worked until midnight and then I was way too tired to film and get this part done. So I'm starting today and I won't finish until tomorrow morning, but I'll still upload tomorrow. We are starting my intentional journey of using freshly milled wheat instead of processed flour for my bread products. And I have shown using some wheat and grain things on my channel before. I've milled corn for cornmeal, I've milled nixtamal for tamales, I've milled some durum wheat for the batza or balloon bread that I've made. But today I am gonna be making pizza dough 100% from freshly milled wheat berries, and I have no idea how this is going to turn out. So I mentioned a week or so ago that I got a couple of books to help me along this journey. So this recipe is out of one of those books, and it involves using 4 different kinds of wheat berries, but I only have 3 on hand. I did stick the 4th one into my Azure Standard January cart, which that order closes on Monday. So I should get that order in about a week and a half. So what I did was I doubled up on one of the others. So this calls for 175 grams of hard white wheat, 175 grams of hard red wheat, 10 grams of durum wheat, and 10 grams of kamut, I think is how you pronounce it. And since I don't have the kamut, I'm just doubling up on the durum. So the durum and the kamut are relatively the same in texture and in flavor, relatively. And the only reason that he uses 2 different kinds of these berries in the recipe is just for that added complexity of flavor. So I think using just the durum wheat berries will be just fine. Now we're gonna be grinding the hard red and the hard white through the mill, and then we're gonna be sifting it, following the directions of the recipe. But the durum wheat, we are not. We are going to keep the bran and the germ and the endosperm all intact. And even though we're gonna sift out some from the hard white and the hard red, some of it is going to remain. And that is what's going to make this such a healthy option. So processed flours, or flour that you buy at the grocery store, has been over-processed, and it's also been sitting for a really long time. So it's lost a lot of the nutritional content that it once had when it was in its original grain form. So wheat berries have a lot of fiber, and that comes from the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And the extra fiber in there helps feed your gut microbiome, which increases your natural immunity. It improves your overall digestion as well. It helps to lower your cholesterol, which helps protect your heart against heart disease, helps to lower your blood sugar, and it also helps to lower your blood pressure. So extra fiber in your diet is absolutely essential for good health. But in addition to that, freshly milled wheat also contains some vitamin Bs, B1, 2, 3, and 6. So with those, you're getting a lot of energy production, nerve function support, brain support, skin support, and they also contain vitamin E, which is an antioxidant, and vitamin E as an antioxidant really helps protect your cells against oxidative stress, which could lead to cancer cell growth. They also contain 2 other antioxidants, phenolic acid, which is an anti-inflammatory and also helps fight free radicals in your body, as well as flavonoids, which are anti-inflammatory, and they also protect your heart, your brain, and because they are an antioxidant, they also prevent cancer growth. And the anti-inflammatory properties are really important because chronic inflammation in our body can lead to a whole host of health issues. It can lead to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, Alzheimer's, arthritis, and even skin issues and others. So including foods that have high anti-inflammatory properties is good for you as well. So I'm gonna bring you down, I'm gonna show you the difference in what these wheat berries look like if you've not worked with wheat berries before. Then we're gonna get to grinding, and then we're gonna get to making the dough. So this recipe calls for a 24-hour slow ferment in the refrigerator. So this is morning on Saturday, and I'm gonna make 2 batches of dough, and I'm making, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But so we're gonna make the dough now, and then that's gonna take a series of steps over multiple 30-minute increment periods of time. Then we're gonna pop it into the refrigerator, and then tomorrow morning, mid-morning, I will bake up at least one of the pizzas for an early lunch, just to show you how that turned out. So let me bring it down and then let's get started. Here is a look at the hard white wheat berries. They're all about the same size and texture, but this is definitely a lighter color than the hard red wheat berries, and that looks like a little tiny stone. So these have just, you know, a little bit darker of a color. Let me see if I can show you better. So we have the hard red and the hard white, just a little darker in color and also deeper flavor as well. And then it doesn't matter if I get these mixed up at this point because they're all going, these two are both going into the grinder at the same time. And then I have the durum wheat. And durum wheat is a harder grain, so I'm gonna throw that through the mill twice, and I will go ahead and I will start with this one. Durum wheat berries produce a wonderful flavor, which I can attest to. That bata bread or the balloon bread that I made, which I can put a link for up here, is absolutely incredible. Loved using these wheat berries for that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this turned on. So it's gonna get loud for a second, and then we're gonna get this passed through the mill twice. First, I will do it on the medium setting, and then I will do it on the fine setting. And we wanna turn it on before we put our wheat berries in. Don't know if you can see in here, but there's color variation, and that is the different, you know, the different parts of the wheat berry that were ground down. So, you know, you've got the endosperm and the germ and the bran in there. Reconnect the parts, which is really easy to do. You just fit this little shoot piece in, push, and now I'm gonna set it to the pastry setting and go again. So we still have, of course, all the different parts of that wheat berry, and we're gonna use all of them. So that was a total of 20 grams of the durum wheat, but it should have been 10 and 10, the durum and the kamut. So we'll set that aside. Here is the hard red wheat. You can tell it's got, you know, a reddish color or a brown color to it. It's much darker than the white wheat. And I am going to do just a medium grind on these, so the bread setting. That was relatively easy. Now I can get my machine apart and out of the way. All right, I just double checked my recipe and I did not measure the appropriate amount of grain, but that's okay. I said I was gonna make a double batch, and the reason for that is because I fed my starter last night. Right before I went to bed. I worked until midnight, so I think I fed this at maybe close to 1 a.m. and we are at about 8 a.m. right now. So it's a little over or past its prime on being active. So, I mean, it's still bubbly, but I also want to try this making it with a sourdough starter that's in its prime, which is usually about 5 or 6 hours after you feed it. So after I make this, I'm gonna go ahead and feed this starter again, and then in 5 or 6 hours, I will do all of this again, and it won't have the full 24 hours of slow fermentation in the refrigerator, but I'm gonna just test the difference. So it's okay that I over measured on the red and the white. So I measured out 175 grams of each, and I needed 225 grams total. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I think I did not get enough sleep last night, but it's okay. Now we're going to sift this down. We're gonna sift it down to 180 grams total. So I need my scale here and my bowl. I'm gonna get that on and I have flour everywhere, so aprons are your friend. All right, so 180 grams of sifted, and so that's what we're gonna do. And this is just a 50 mesh sifter here, and I just got this on Amazon. And it is going to keep out some of the larger pieces of the whole grain, but not all of the different parts. So we're still gonna maintain some of the extra fiber in here. And we're not gonna throw this away either. If you did watch that video where I made the chickpea curry, I think it was the chickpea curry with the bata bread or the balloon bread, you know, I was trying to think of ways, or asked for some advice on ways to use up some of the sifted stuff. But in one of the books I got, he talks about keeping it, because instead of using like a rice flour or a corn flour or something like that on the bottom of the breads that you bake in the oven, like sourdough or even pizza dough, you can use this instead with a little bit of mix of corn flour or something. And use the sifter. I need more coffee this morning. You know, this was the week of New Year's, holiday craziness, and I think Monday I worked late, and then Tuesday I worked late, but both of those nights, I think I only worked until about 8 o'clock, but that's a 12-hour day. Wednesday, I technically had off, but I did put in a couple of hours. And then Thursday night I worked until after 10, and then last night it was right just after midnight when I stopped. So it's been a really long week. I wasn't even sure that I was going to be able to get a video out on Sunday, but I've only missed one ever since making my commitment to doing 3 a week. So I didn't want to miss. I like to stay true to my commitments. And the one that I did miss, there's just been a lot going on, a whole lot going on. My mom passed away. I've had another family member in and out of the hospital locally, and then another family member currently still in the hospital out of state, very serious. So with work and just life, it can be a little exhausting sometimes. But then I get to do things like this that kind of bring me back to my zen, my happy place. I love to learn new things. I love to teach new things. And so I'm in my happy place right now. 85, so we've got about 95 grams more to go. And this is messy. I should have used a bigger bowl because it is getting kind of everywhere as I do this. Some of the flour is just so fine that it's flying up as I'm doing this and out of the sides of the bowl, but I think we're still gonna have plenty in here. But I definitely should have used a wider and deeper bowl to catch this. Quite the mess going on. It's like snow. 180 on the dot. So this is mostly the endosperm, and then this is a lot of the wheat bran and the wheat germ. And this I'm going to keep and set aside because I will absolutely use that. I don't like to waste things if I don't have to. All right, next up, I'm gonna use a bowl that has a tight-fitting lid. Christmas present. And now I am going to dissolve 128 grams of 100-degree water with my sourdough starter and some of these other ingredients. So it's winter here, which is why I'm using 100-degree water per the recipe instructions. If it was summer, we would use a lower temp water, maybe 78 to 80 degrees. So I've measured that out in grams, 128. And we need 40 grams of sourdough starter. So mine is bubbly. It smells great. This I have not been using a lot of. So this has been hanging out in my refrigerator for a long time. And I feed it maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks, and it's fine. There does get to be a gray liquid on the top, which is perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with it. It didn't go bad when it looks like that. That's just, you know, the active yeast and bacteria in here converting all the sugars over to alcohol, so that's kind of the hooch that's on top. You can pour that off or you can stir that in. Mine had been sitting for a while, so I went ahead and poured it off. But because I knew I was going to be doing this weekend, I pulled this guy out, I think, on Tuesday, and I've been doing a nightly feed with him. So he is perfectly active and happy again. So let's measure out 40 grams of this. And get him into our warm water. Now, if you don't have a sourdough starter, they're fairly easy to make. I hate to say it, but it only took me one try, and I know I've seen a lot of people really struggle. I'm not sure why. If you're looking for any tips or tricks on starting a sourdough starter, let me know. I'm happy to start another one and just to show that. But it's really easy. It doesn't take a lot of babysitting. Once you have an established starter, you can keep it in your fridge like I do and feed it once every month and a half to 2 months, and then you're just feeding it a little bit. So it's great to have on hand. Sourdough is a fermented food, so again, you're further feeding your microbiome in your gut, which is improving your overall immunity and helping with your digestion and all of that. A good option to use instead of traditional yeast for yeasted breads. All right, next to this, we need to add the olive oil. So I have here 4 grams of extra virgin olive oil. I have 5 grams of kosher salt and 2 grams of granulated sugar. I'm gonna mix those together. And because that water was pretty warm, we're just dissolving that salt and that sugar. Okay, now I'm gonna put in all of the flours. So the hard reds and hard white sifted and the durum wheat. And then I'm just gonna mix that with my hands until all the flour has been incorporated with the water, the olive oil, and the sourdough starter. It's very sticky, but I'm also trying to pick up the dough that's just on the sides of the bowl. There isn't much, but there's some, and very sticky. It will stick less to wet hands, but I don't want to overhydrate the dough at this point either, so I'm just going to do the best I can to get this off. And that's it. Now we're going to cover that and let it rest for 30 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna refeed him, so in 5 to 6 hours, I can make a second batch, because I don't think anybody here is gonna turn down 2 pizzas. All right, our first 30-minute rest period is done. And I've got just a little bowl of water here, which is gonna help the dough from sticking to my hands. And this dough hasn't done much yet at all, not expecting it to. We're going to start to develop the glutens in here by doing the first of 3 stretch and folds in 30-minute increments. So this is the first one, and stretch and folds are not hard. I'm just going to be grabbing a handful of some of this dough, stretching it and letting it fall back on itself, and then turning the bowl and doing the same thing. And I typically, at least when I do my sourdough, I typically go around the bowl twice, so 8 folds in all on the first stretch and fold. So that was 2. I kind of wiggle it to get it to stretch. That's 3. 4. I did tear that. You want to try not to tear the dough. So you want to be kind of gentle. It's going to get more pliable as you go along. And this should be good. So it's not hard. Stretch and folds especially are not hard. Make sure I've got some water on my hands. I'm just gonna take that dough, Make sure I've got the bulk of it out of the bowl. And then I'm just gonna tuck it under itself, back up into kind of a tight little ball. Put it back in the bowl where he looks a whole lot smoother now than he did. It was a really rough and shaggy dough before the first stretch and fold, and just wait, this is going to get really elastic, really smooth, really beautiful. But first he needs another 30-minute rest period. All right, I moved over to the other side of my island just to see if the lighting is any better over here, because I'd like to show the transformation of this dough. Hopefully you can see this, because I won't really know until I go to edit it. This is a really bright light in my eyes. So this is the second 30-minute mark, and now we're gonna do the second of 3 stretch and folds, getting my hands wet. The dough has relaxed a little bit in here, and again, I'm just gonna take my fingers and force them underneath this sticky dough until about the halfway point, and then with my thumb on one side and all my fingers on the back side, I'm gonna gently squeeze them together as I pull out. And I do this wiggle thing, I always have, until I stretch it as far as it will go without tearing, and then fold it back on itself. So that's 1. 2. 3, and some people, sometimes I will do as well, this thing called the slap and fold, which I'm not going to do it on my counter because I didn't sterilize this, but you would take it and you would slap it down to stick it, right, because it doesn't want to stretch yet, to stick it to help it hold while you pull it up to stretch it. But when I do it this way, I just use my other hand, gently, 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 because you don't want to tear it. And going around the bowl at least once. I like to do it twice. Sometimes I'll even come back to the center and grab more just to get a better stretch. Holding it down with this hand here. Hopefully this is going to show. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'm still figuring things out. And then when I'm done, again, I take it, I smooth it back into a round ball, which is, it's still a little bit tight, so I wouldn't say it's like totally supple or anything, but it's a lot smoother and it is getting more elastic. 30 more minutes before our next stretch and fold. All right, here we go. Last stretch and fold in the bowl, and then one more outside the bowl so we can really get a good stretch on it. So just repeating the same process. And every time I come in here and feel the dough, it just feels squishier, just lovely. The reason that it's not sticking very well to the bottom of the bowl is because I'm getting my fingers wet. And so that's why I slapped that back down to see if I could get it to hold so I could get a good stretch. But the next one will be a really good stretch because I'm going to move it out to my prep area, my workstation. Remember, you don't want to tear it, so you've got to be gentle. Even though I am, handling this quite a bit, I'm still being gentle so that I don't tear it. We want to develop the gluten strands in here. We don't want to break them. try for one more. It's getting kind of tight. But the 30 minutes in between each one of these stretch and folds does help relax the dough. And I am not used to working with 100% whole wheat fresh milled, so I'm getting a feel for the dough here. Okay, it's pretty tight, so I'm gonna let it rest. Put it back up into a ball. Covered so it doesn't dry out for another 30 minutes. And because we're gonna be using this surface area to do the next and last stretch and fold, I wanna make sure it's nice and clean. I did scrub it with some soap and water, and now I'm gonna use some Star Tan sanitizer, which you just spray on and let it dry naturally, which takes about 30 minutes, so that's perfect for our next wait time. And now my prep area is once again sanitized. Here's our dough. Not a whole lot has changed. Don't expect it to. But I'm gonna go ahead and do one last stretch and fold on an unfloured work surface. Looks like I'm gonna need my water. It's pretty sticky. There we go. Set that aside. I'm gonna put it smooth side down, and now I'm gonna stretch it again. I don't want too much water because I want it to really stretch. We're just gonna do once around, which is 4 stretch and fold. So I'm gonna start with 12 o'clock away from me. So again, I've got my fingers about halfway into the dough, and I'm giving it a really good stretch, but I'm not tearing it. Don't break those gluten strands. And bring it back. And then I'll do 3 o'clock. And then 6 o'clock. And then 9 o'clock. And then we're going to roll that back up into a smooth dough. But first, before I put it in a new bowl, I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil in here so it doesn't stick. And you want to use a covered bowl so it doesn't dry out in the refrigerator overnight. You don't need a lot of oil, just enough to coat it so it doesn't stick. And it is going to rise. We're looking for the dough to double in size. So I'm going to oil the whole bowl. And I'm going to put it in first smooth side down, so there's a little bit of oil on the top of the dough. And then I'm going to turn it over. And now he is ready for his overnight fermentation. And We are at about 11 o'clock in the morning here. So I'm gonna put him in the fridge, but before I do that, I just wanted to show you, because I did feed the rest of my starter, and this guy is incredibly bubbly. He has doubled in size, so he's just about ready to use for my second batch of dough. But we'll see you here tomorrow morning when we turn this dough into pizza. So here's how it's gone so far this morning. I came downstairs at about 8 o'clock and checked on the dough, and it looked the exact same as when I put it into the refrigerator yesterday. It had not doubled in size. It just looked slack and wet. So I took it out of the refrigerator and just let it sit out for an hour, and then I checked it again and no change, and the dough felt pretty cold. So I took the trays out of my Excalibur dehydrator and put both bowls in there just side by side with the door off for 30 minutes, and then I checked on them. The dough was still cold. It still hadn't done anything. So I did another 30 minutes, so a total of an hour with the lids on and the door off, and the dough was only just starting to warm up. So then I went ahead and put them in for 30 more minutes with the dough lid just cracked. I did put the door on the dehydrator, but I didn't like close it all the way so the air could still get out, because I didn't want the air circulating amongst the dough to dry it out for the 30 minutes that it was in there. So then I turned at that 30-minute mark, I turned on the oven to 500 degrees with my pizza stone in there on the bottom, little lower third of the oven. So 30 minutes more in there. This needed to preheat for an hour. So when that 30 minutes was up, I closed the door because no more air was flowing in there. And it was just a warm environment for these doughs to hang out while the oven finished preheating. So I was pretty worried this morning, but we weren't gonna get anywhere with this dough, but we did. It just needed to warm up, and then it doubled in size. And it still looks wet to me, but we're gonna see what we can get out of it. So here's the one that I did on camera, and this smells incredible, really nice. And the one that I did later with the fresher sourdough starter, it actually had some bubbles forming in it yesterday. It looked really nice. So I don't know what the difference is going to be in the end product here, but we do have what look like nicely formed pizza doughs. The dough looks really good, so I'm happy with that. I hope that it tastes good. I am gonna get some flour onto my work surface here. I have a feeling this is gonna stick. And I'm gonna get a little extra out just because I'll probably need it. All right, got a little flour on my hand to help get this out if necessary. It is kind of sticking to the bottom of the bowl, not too bad. Trying to get it out, holding its roundish shape. Not bad. Okay, so I am not an expert pizza dough former by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm gonna give it my best. This is about whether or not we can make freshly milled wheat and sourdough into a yummy tasting pizza dough. So I'm not trying to judge myself on how I'm going to form this pizza. I'm gonna get a little flour on top here. And we like a little rise on our crust. So in my limited experience in making pizza dough, that means you don't want to pinch the edges at all. So I'm gonna start right in the center and push down. And then I'm gonna push out from there until I get to what I think would be a good, it is sticky, a good edge for a crust. So from the middle and keep pushing out, and kind of I'm stretching it as I go. Pizza dough should be stretchable, elastic. I'm excited about this. I hope this works. I hope this comes out well. And I probably could have ground some more wheat berries instead of using the white flour for this, but one thing at a time. I want to turn the dough because I'm better pushing with my right hand. That's going to be hard for me to go this way. I have a feeling that it might be a little challenging to move this dough, but we'll see. A little sticky. There we go. So push and stretch. This one has some bubbles forming on the crust as well. I think this is going to work out pretty good. All right, we're getting there, and it's round. I'm happy with that. Now, before it gets too big, I want to make sure that I can actually get this dough picked up off the board. So I'm going to use my bench scraper for that with flour. All right, I think that's movable. So I'm going to pinch this like a steering wheel, so like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock up here to lift it and to turn it. And I'm going to keep doing that, which will allow for a natural stretch of the dough as it's up in the air. So let's see how that works. I'm going to make sure I have flour on both hands. I think that looks like a medium-sized pizza. What do you think? I think I'm good with that. Now I have to see if I can get this on and off my pizza peel, because again, this is a sticky, wet dough. The pizza peel I have has the holes in it that allow the flour to drain off of it, but I am still gonna try to flour it just a little bit, just to make sure that I can get the pizza dough off of the peel once it's on. All right, so this is my practice one. I'm gonna make sure I can get it on and then off. And then we'll build our pizza toppings. Huh. Maybe I should do parchment paper. I think I'm gonna do parchment paper. And here's why. So normally what I would do is I would put the pizza on the peel and I would build the pizza on here. This is a very heavy dough. Once I put the toppings on it, I have a feeling it's gonna be hard to slide off of here and get it onto the pizza stone. So I'm gonna go with parchment paper. And then after just a minute or two in the oven, I can should be able to slide the parchment paper out from underneath the pizza. So now I just need to get it on there. This is a really heavy dough, so we're gonna do that pick up and stretch thing again and just get it on the wheel. There we go. All right, now we'll stretch that back out to where we want it, into a circular shape. Practicing this on camera. And I want the parchment paper more towards me and not up against the back wall of the oven when this goes in. So I'm gonna try to slide it. There we go. Okay, I'm feeling more confident with this, except I don't have any on this side. Once this dough hits that pizza stone, it is going to cook on there in probably microseconds. So want to make sure that it's not touching the stone until I have it placed exactly where I want it. I know I'm being a little bit fussy here, but I want this to come out as well as possible so we can get a good evaluation of how whole grains work with sourdough starter. All right, I'm going to cut this little piece off and then we will top our pizza. I only need to be able to grab it from one end, and it could potentially burn in the oven if it's touching the back side of the oven, so that's why I'm just trimming off some of it. What do you think? Well, I guess we should wait until this comes out of the oven and we see how it worked. I've got some cheese that I shredded. I'm just gonna do pepperoni. That's a topping that everybody can get behind here. And then I've got some home canned pizza sauce. I've got about half a jar here. That should be plenty for a medium pizza. And I use a pastry brush to spread my sauce around. And then I like to do just a thin layer of cheese to start. And this is just mozzarella. All right, so that's a fairly thin layer of cheese. That probably wasn't even a quarter of a cup. And then I'm gonna add some pepperoni here. And then I like to go with another layer of cheese, another thin layer, because it helps hold the pepperoni on. All right, let's see how this does. Into the oven we go. I'm gonna cook that between 8 and 9 minutes at 500 degrees. I set my timer for 4 minutes because I'm gonna rotate it. The back of the oven tends to be a little bit hotter, so I just wanna make sure that it cooks and browns evenly. So I'll turn it at 4 minutes, check it at 8. I might go up to 9, we'll see. All right, that's our timer. And I can see that the parchment paper is pretty brown. I do wanna turn this if I can. It's looking really good, but it's also, actually, you know what, the back, nope, it's fine. I was thinking that the back was looking darker than it was, but it's not, it's fine. The parchment paper is dark, but it's not burning on the back side because I had cut that down. Next time I'll probably just leave it on the parchment paper and cut all the way around it. So that is cheesy, bubbly goodness. Look at that, and look at that edge crust. Yum. Smells fantastic. The pizza has about 2 more minutes to go, so while we're waiting for that, I thought we'd give you an update here. I did a freeze dry run that I didn't film because I can't film every one that I do. But the tamales that I made last week, I made a lot of pork, and I even called it out that I was like over making it. So I was able to make just over a dozen that day, which was last weekend. And then I was able to make, I think, a dozen on New Year's Day, which was perfect. And then I still had enough filling for 2 more of those. So that made 48 tamales. And I had 15 cups of pork broth left over that filled 3 of my medium freeze dryer trays and went through the freeze dryer. And so that's this. So I only need 3 grams because the total gram weight coming out of the freeze dryer was 45 grams, and we started with 15 cups. So I just need to add 3 grams of this per 1 cup when I want to make pork gravy. So I'm happy to have this. This is awesome. That was such good broth. All right, I gave it 1 extra minute just to be sure it was done. It looked a little still blonde. The crust was still pretty light. So let me get this out. Oh my goodness, this looks amazing. Look how good that turned out. It looks fantastic. I wonder if I can get the pizza off the parchment paper at the same time as the pizza wheel. This is why I didn't try to pull it out after 4 minutes. I probably should have done that after like 2. There we go. Voila, look at that beautiful pizza. I'm gonna let that cool down for just a couple minutes before we slice into it, but look at that crust, you guys. This looks fantastic. Not at all bad for my first try ever. We'll see how it tastes. All right, let's see if I can show you the bottom here. Not burned at all, looks really good. It's still pretty warm, but yeah, I'm excited to cut into this and give this crust a try. Normally I use this pizza cutter because it is just a better cut. Goes all the way through, whereas this one doesn't usually go all the way through, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting through that crust. You can't even see pepperoni because of the cheese on top, but you can certainly see the grease. I did try to dab a little bit of it off because I do not like all that grease. So I will dab it again before I go to eat it. And then later tonight I'll make the other one with some veg. I really like mushrooms, olives, and onions on my pizza. But I can't do that right now because I have to get this video done, edited, and uploaded. So I'm gonna dab this and then we're going to give it a try, but check that out. All right, let's give this a try. So again, the crust is perfect. It's a heavy dough, so it's not gonna stand up on its own. Can you see the edge crust? Look at that, it looks so good. I am so impressed. Let's see how it tastes. That's delicious. That is so good. It's got a really good flavor. I mean, it's really hard right now for me to like get through the flavor of the pepperoni and the cheese and the sauce, but I can taste flavor in the crust. I also taste a whole lot of salt from that cheese. I've gotten really salt sensitive as I've gotten older. Okay, I'm gonna forgo the bulk of this here, at least for now, because I really want to taste this crust. That is absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. I wouldn't know that this didn't come from like a pizzeria. Even though the dough feels really, really heavy, it's very light and airy. It's wonderful. It has a slight whole wheat flavor, but not much, which I'm kind of surprised about. I don't know if the sourdough kind of mellowed out the flavor of that, or if that mix of the hard red and the hard white mellowed it out, but I really like this. super, super good. Thank you so much for joining me as I embark on this year's attempt at weaning myself off of refined flours and embracing whole grain for overall better health. This pizza is a healthier pizza. It's not going to spike your blood sugar the way that refined flours do because you have all of that bran and germ in there, which means a ton of fiber. It also brings all the other nutrients that we talked about. It is a better choice. If you are way ahead of me on the curve for embracing whole grains 100%, and you have anything that you want to suggest that I give a try, please let me know. Or if you would like to embark on this journey as well and you would like to see me give something a try, please let me know in the comments section down below. My name is Kelly, you're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.